The following program paid for by Lifespan Wealth Management. Providing financial advice since 1993. It's time for Your Money with Sherry Goss, Randy Goss, and Jonathan Eisner. And now from the Macon studios of News Talk 940 WMAC, it's Your Money.
Good morning, Middle Georgia, and thanks for tuning in to Your Money, produced by Lifespan Wealth Management. As financial advisors, the main thing we do is provide retirement planning advice and manage our clients' investment accounts. So if you're looking for an investment advisor, call our office at 478-922-8100 to set up your complimentary consultation.
Lifespan Wealth Management has offices in Macon and Warner Robins for your convenience and has been serving Middle Georgia for over 30 years. You can learn more about our services by visiting our website at retirerelax.com. And while you're on our site, go to the special reports section where you'll find several reports that are available to you for free. You can also sign up to receive our digital feeds, which are short videos providing great information relevant to retirement, investing, and matters that affect your money.
We also offer seminars to the community at no cost. So if you're in need of a guest speaker for your church or civic organization, give us a call, and together we can decide what topics you would like us to present to your group. Again, our contact number is 478-922-8100.
Good morning, Middle Georgia, and thank you for, as always, for listening to Your Money. And thank you, Randy, for making me aware that this morning you made me aware that that not only has spring officially sprung, but also that Cherry Blossom Festival is officially underway. I guess I had my head in the sand. I wasn't aware of that before you told me.
Yeah, the first day of spring blew past me too.
Yeah, and then Cherry Blossom started Friday. And so to me, this is a great time of year to live in the South, and especially in Macon. If you're like me, you probably are about to be spending a lot of time at Little League baseball fields. One of our sons plays travel baseball, and this is truly mine and Katie's favorite time of year. But if the temperature would catch up, then we can really start, I think, enjoying it like it needs to be enjoyed. It's a little bit too chilly for me. Good time to mention on April 5th, and we're sponsoring this. We're doing the Run to End Alzheimer's. This is a 5K and a 10K, right, guys?
Correct.
Okay. And this is at the Landings in Warner Robins. We've sponsored it for several years. You guys told me this week $70,000 last year.
I believe that was the number. Yes.
And all the proceeds go to the Walk to End Alzheimer's.
Yes.
Fantastic. Great cause. And we're sponsoring it again this year. And Randy and Sherry and possibly some others from our office will be there on April 5th. And I think you told me that they're on pace to get even more this year.
So if you'd like to participate, just go. What's the website there?
It is run to end alz.org.
Yeah, it's a great. John Rowland sponsors, not sponsors, but he puts this event on, and he's been doing this for a ton of years now, and does a fantastic job. And everyone that goes out just has a great time. And it's through the Landings down in Warner Robins, and they have just a good time. Everyone has a good time. So I encourage you to sign up. You get a free T-shirt and a lot of good fellowship with different people, and it's for a great cause. So
yeah, that's 2 weeks from today.
Yep.
So if the weather will cooperate, that should be a really good time. Randy, let's get a market update.
All right. Well, Wall Street's fear and greed gauge has been below 25, which is in the extreme fear category and a level associated with volatile markets. And it's been there for about 2 weeks. Just a month ago, though, the reading was at 46, which is a neutral reading. Now, I tell you this because the headlines want you to think the worst. But when you're looking at data like this, it is important to remember that what we're going through right now may feel different, but it's just because it is the most recent thing in your memory. The circumstances may have changed, but volatility in some form may always seem to be present in the markets. The most well-known measure of market sentiment is the CBOE Volatility Index, or the VIX. And as a rule of thumb, VIX values greater than 30 are generally linked to a large volatility from increased uncertainty, risk, and investor fear. Values below 20 generally correspond to stable, stress-free periods in the market. And right now, the VIX sits at 20. The VIX measures expected price fluctuations or volatility in the S&P 500 index over the next 30 days. The VIX often drops on days when the broader market rallies and soars when stocks plunge. But the key is to look at the VIX over time. It tends to be lower in bull markets and higher when the bears are in control. The Fear and Greed Index uses increased market volatility as a signal for fear. The concerns that we see today are driven by concerns like the president's tariffs and the fears that we might ignite a global trade war, which could drag the economy into a recession. On top of that, inflation remains stubbornly high, and the interest rates are still high. Yet, it also indicates that that Wall Street and investing public aren't panicking. And right now, the VIX sits right about 20.
The markets have been bumpy, and there's a lot going on.
Yep.
All right. Treasury Secretary Bessent says White House is heading off a, quote, guaranteed financial crisis. Treasury Secretary Bessent said Sunday that the Trump administration is focused on preventing a financial crisis that could be the result of massive government spending over the past few years. You don't say. He said, and I quote, "What I could guarantee is we would have had a financial crisis. I've studied it, I've taught it, and if we had kept up at these spending levels, that everything was unsustainable. And we are resetting, and we're putting things on a sustainable path." This sounds promising. President Donald Trump has made getting the government's fiscal house in order a priority since taking office. He created the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, we talk about it every week, led by Elon Musk, to spearhead job cuts and early retirement incentives across multiple federal agencies. Still, the U.S. debt and deficit problem worsened during Trump's first month in office as the budget shortfall for February passed the $1 trillion mark. Bessent noted that there are no guarantees that there won't be a recession. The market has been on a tumultuous ride as of late as Trump's widespread tariffs raised concerns about inflation and economic slowdown. The S&P 500 on Thursday fell into 10% correction from its February high as the volatility spiked. Bessent believes pullbacks like the one in the market that the market's experiencing right now are benign, and Trump's pro-business policies will boost the market and the economy over the long run.
Next up, announced this week, GE Aerospace has become the latest business to announce investments in the U.S. of $1 billion, following Indiana-based pharmaceutical company Eli Lilly announcing a $27 billion investment to boost domestic drug production. Tech giant Apple has also publicly committed to investing a staggering $500 billion into the American economy over the next 5 years, including the construction of an advanced AI server manufacturing factory outside of Houston. Apple also plans to open an Apple Manufacturing Academy in Detroit and hire an additional 20,000 employees. Google to buy cloud security startup Wiz for $32 billion. There is a lot of good going on out there.
Yep. Meanwhile, cuts are coming to the post office. They've been running deficits for decades, so it's going to be interesting to see how that goes.
You know, this is one that was just long overdue.
I agree.
Yep. And here's an update on Social Security. DOGE posted that for the past 2 weeks, at Social Security has begun a major cleanup of their records. Approximately 3.2 million number holders, all listed age 120 and above, have now been marked as deceased. DOGE's post said that as of March 8th, the Social Security database listed a little more than 12.3 million number holders as being age 120 or older, but some may not be receiving benefits. It's going to be really interesting to see how this goes.
I would hope that they're all not receiving benefits at 120.
Right.
All right. Moving on. The next, the Fed's wait-and-see outlook obscures a bigger strategy shift. Federal Reserve officials held interest rates steady at the end of their two-day meeting Wednesday, but the strategy is shifting. But in their defense, the strategy was forced to change due to the president's agenda with the threat of expanding trade war that could send prices up. The Fed chair said that there will likely be two Fed cuts in rate cuts in 2025. The markets liked what Powell had to say at the end of the day. The Fed made no promises on when the rate cuts would happen, just that they need more clarity, saying they need greater confidence that the inflation is cooling. The Fed can cut because of good news, that being inflation has declined, but the Fed can also cut because of bad news, i.e. the economy is sputtering. The case for the first type of cuts has dimmed because of sweeping tariffs increases appear much more likely than they did just 7 weeks ago when the Fed officials last met. And as we are all aware, tariffs represent an economic shock that can suddenly decrease the economy's ability to supply goods and services, which could cause prices to increase and weaken economic growth. Increased duties on imported goods threaten to cause disruptions to the global supply chains, and given their haphazard rollout, it will be a chill in the air for new investments, at least until the business have more clarity on things like underlying cost and the processes that go along with the said tariffs.
Right. And on the other hand, the economy is sputtering a little, and consumer sentiment has fallen recently amid comments from the Oval Office saying that they are willing to tolerate some short term weakness in financial markets or the economy for the long term gains. Fed officials have recent experience with trade wars when President Trump imposed tariffs in his first term. But back then, the Fed lowered rates preemptively to shore up economic growth. It had the luxury of doing so because inflation was low.
Yep. And now, current round of tariffs is shaping up to be larger than the previous episode, and inflation has been above the Fed's target for the last 4 years. And some Fed officials have said that they would even be more cautious if there were signs that the public was beginning to anticipate inflation to rise in a sustained fashion. Central bankers are particularly focused on making sure that the consumers and businesses expect inflation to stay low because those expectations can be self fulfilling. Developing an accurate forecast on what the Fed will or will not do has grown increasingly difficult. There are a lot of moving pieces, and coming up with forecasts has only grown harder.
Wait, who remembers or even heard of the 1960s chicken tax? You know, nothing is more American than the pickup truck. One big reason why, the chicken tax. Bear with me, this will be clear in just a second.
Just 2 weeks after the assassination of JFK, the EU imposed levies on the American poultry. In response, President Johnson hit back with a 25% tariff on imported trucks. As the Trump administration pursues a barrage of new tariffs, the long-standing tax on pickup truck bears witness to the power of high duties to reshape the global trade. Competition in industries over decades with effects far-reaching or far exceeding their original purpose. Like today's tensions, the dispute that has become known as the chicken war was punctuated by worries about trade deficits, accusations of protectionism, and threats to cut the Europe loose from America's defense umbrella. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, back then, though, Washington favored lower import duties and imposed the chicken tax only after more than a year of fruitless diplomacy. And at the time, the Johnson's administration emphasized that the tariffs was not necessarily permanent and could be canceled, provided Europe cut its poultry levies. Since becoming president, President Trump has introduced a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum and a 25% tax on many other goods imported from Mexico and Canada, and an additional 20% duty on Chinese products. He has said that he would give details of further wide-ranging tariffs on April 2nd, right around the corner, to include a potential 25% levy on all light vehicle imports.
But let's discuss some lessons from the 1960s auto tariffs that are consistent with the current White House's America First agenda, and some that are not, just to be fair. Thanks in large part to the chicken tax, virtually all pickup trucks sold in the U.S. are built in North America, and most of them by American brands. General Motors, Ford, and Ram owner Stellantis sold 80% of all light trucks in the U.S. last year. By contrast, overseas products and brands play a major role in the broader auto market, where imports are subject to a 2.5% tariff. Roughly 4 million cars and sport utility vehicles were shipped from Europe, Asia, and elsewhere last year, accounting for almost a quarter of domestic sales.
Yeah, and interestingly, though, almost nobody pays the chicken tax. While President Trump has touted tariffs as a way to fund other tax cuts, the more they successfully encourage local production, the less money they raise directly for the federal government. But on the flip side of that, there will be more U.S. jobs created and more taxes paid. Import of motor vehicles and transportation of goods, the custom category that includes pickup trucks and is mostly subject to the 25% tariff, triggered estimated duties of just about $104 million last year, and that's according to the official data. Imports of passenger vehicles taxed at 25% are expected to generate about $3.6 billion. A 25% rate gives companies strong incentives to find workarounds, and the chicken tax has a colorful history of companies engaging in so-called tariff engineering to avoid it. Here are some examples. Subaru imported a small pickup truck in the 1980s called the BI Drive Recreational All-Terrain Transporter, or BRAT, but it wasn't taxable as a truck. Why? Because it had two seats bolted into the open bed facing backwards.
Mercedes-Benz used to make Sprinter vans for the U.S. market in Germany and then partially disassemble them to be shipped to South Carolina, where they were rebuilt locally. In 2018, with the Sprinter sales growing, the company expanded its South Carolina factory to handle the full final assembly process. Even U.S. companies, the apparent beneficiaries of the tariff, have sought to avoid it. Ford used to import its Transit Connect model from Turkey with seats in the back that were removed when it passed customs, transforming what the company called a passenger wagon into a cargo van. In 2013, U.S. Customs and Border Protection ruled that Ford should be paying the chicken tax, leading to a multi-year legal dispute that was finally settled just last year. The company agreed to pay $365 million to resolve Justice Department allegations of tax evasion without admitting liability. Mexico and Canada have offered a legal route around the chicken tax since the North American Free Trade Agreement went live in 1994. And some pickup trucks sold in the U.S. are now assembled across the border, albeit with many U.S. parts.
Most economists hate tariffs because protected markets are often associated with high consumer prices and limited choice, competition, and innovation. The history of the chicken tax bears out some of these criticisms, but not all. Americans likely have less choice of pickup trucks than they otherwise would, particularly in the midsize segment that is also popular abroad. Kia recently launched its first ever pickup truck, the Tasman, but has no plans to sell it in the U.S. Mitsubishi doesn't sell a pickup in the U.S. despite being a big competitor in the segment elsewhere. For cars and sport utility vehicles, Asian manufacturers entered the U.S. by shipping models from home in small quantities to test the market. They then invested in local production after attracting a critical mass of consumers. With trucks, the chicken tax led companies to adopt an all-or-nothing approach. Only the largest brands such as Toyota took the plunge.
Yeah, and despite complaints about the high price of trucks in the U.S., they're often more expensive abroad. A 2025 Ford Ranger XL, which starts at roughly $33,000 here in the U.S., is priced at the equivalent of around $34,000 in Australia and $37,000 in the U.K. Even Volkswagen, whose 1950s-era minivans and pickup trucks were the original target of the chicken tax, plans to return to the market with a U.S.-manufactured electric pickup truck under the historic Scout brand. Last year, it started building a $2 billion factory in South Carolina, with deliveries slated to start in 2027.
Yeah, the trade dispute that triggered the chicken tax started in the summer of 1962 when the creation of the Europe's Common Agricultural Policy triggered an increase in West German tariffs on poultry. Shipments from the U.S. farmers to West Germany, which had been booming, fell by more than half in the first 6 months of 1963. Then, as now, trade conflict was allied with concerns that the U.S. was spending too much on European security. U.S. senators told a German minister that they didn't see any reason that they should leave their soldiers in Germany if the country wouldn't buy their chickens. Then West German Chancellor Konrad Adenauer had recalled in his memoirs.
The eventual U.S. response was deliberately narrow, covering the equivalent of just $300 million of goods in today's money, including brandy and potato starch and a few other goods. Yet it ended up having a decisive impact on Detroit, which gradually retreated into the profitable truck niche as Asian brands grew in the wider market and gasoline prices fell in the 80s and 90s. The lesson for today comes from Nick Kolas, the founder of DataTrek. He says that even something that seems kind of trivial can have very long-lasting effects. It can be good, it can be bad, it can be good first and bad later. We just don't know. I know that sounds kind of flippant, but that is life. We all make decisions and then we deal with the outcome, good, bad, or indifferent. In the case of the chicken tax, it sounds like a lot more good came from it than bad. It'll be interesting to watch.
And we hope that y'all enjoyed that little segment because it was very interesting coming across that article.
Yes.
Yeah, a little historical context to current environment. Dr. Oz criticizes some Medicare Advantage business practices.
I like this guy.
Mehmet Oz, the Trump administration's nominee to lead the Medicare agency, I like him too. He said that some actions by private insurers in the Medicare Advantage program amounted to fraud and cheating, and he intended to go after them as head of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. His comments during his Senate confirmation hearing Friday were focused on industry practices that can boost insurers' Medicare Advantage payments by documenting more diagnoses in their patients. Medicare Advantage insurers get higher payouts when patients have certain conditions. There's a new sheriff in town, said Oz, a heart surgeon known for his long-running television show, which, by the way, my family attended when we went to New York a few years ago.
Oh, cool.
We actually went to an episode of the Dr. Oz show.
Nice.
It was pretty cool. I'll have to tell you guys more about it later. But let's see, where was I? Let's see. He criticized upcoding in Medicare Advantage and said, "I pledge if confirmed, I will go after it." This is good because I think this has gotten out of control in the medical industry. Oz's words are bad news for Medicare Advantage companies, which have been hoping for an easier ride under a Republican administration. Medicare Advantage, the $450 billion program that allows private insurers to administer the federal health benefits of the elderly and disabled, is a key business to the biggest insurers, including United Health Group, Humana, and CVS Health. Oz said he believed that there's a bipartisan support for a crackdown.
Senator Bill Cassidy, a Louisiana Republican, as well as Massachusetts Democrat Senator Elizabeth Warren and Vermont Democrat Senator Peter Welch all asked pointed questions about Medicare Advantage. Senator Warren referred to a Wall Street Journal analysis that found more than 66,000 Medicare Advantage patients were diagnosed with diabetic cataracts, even though they had already gotten cataract surgery, which replaces the damaged lens of an eye with a plastic insert. Does that sound like Medicare fraud to you, she asked. Oz responded, the answer is yes. It is anatomically impossible. Senator Welch also mentioned the journal's reporting, including how doctors can be encouraged to add diagnoses to patients' records. Are you going to have any tolerance for that kind of ripoff from your insurance companies, Welch asked Oz. Oz said he wouldn't.
I hope he doesn't.
Right.
In a series of articles last year, the Wall Street Journal reported that the federal government paid Medicare Advantage companies more than $50 billion for payment-boosting diseases that weren't identified by any treating doctors or hospitals from 2019 to 2021. Many of the diagnoses came from roughly 1-hour home visits by nurses working for insurers.
This is outrageous.
It is. Oz criticized the home visits and the idea that the insurer is being paid extra based on diagnoses that didn't result in a treatment. When insurers send nurses to Medicare patients' homes to scan for buildup in their arteries, it is primarily done to upcode you, Oz said, as he added. Oz said, and he added that it was cheating for the insurers to be paid more for such patients if they require no treatment for their condition.
But, he said, others covering and treating patients with more advanced disease requiring medical intervention might not get additional payment. Quoting Oz, it doesn't just help these scoundrels who are stealing from the vulnerable. It's actually hurting the people trying to take care of those vulnerable populations. The journal's findings were based on analyzing Medicare data obtained under a research agreement with the federal government.
And I'll make a note here. We use the Wall Street Journal a lot as a resource for articles because they are so good. And if you want to read it, you can go to our website, retirerelax.com, and you can click on the links and get right to the Wall Street Journal for free. I encourage all of my clients to look at it because it's a great source of information. Next up, Scam of the Week. And I just got these messages on my phone last weekend. Cities across the United States are warning residents about an ongoing mobile phishing campaign in which scammers impersonate parking violation departments. The fraudulent text messages claim recipients have unpaid parking invoices and threaten a $35 daily fine if left unpaid. The campaign, which began in December, remains active. The smishing texts claim to be from the government authority and instruct recipients to click a link to pay an alleged overdue fine. This is a final reminder from the City of New York regarding the unpaid parking invoice. A $35 daily overdue fee will be charged if payment is not made today, one fraudulent message says.
Yeah, and our assistant here actually received a message about needing to pay for a toll road, and she was actually on one recently, which
Right.
I also experienced. So warn everybody about this. I think we've all gotten the Peach Pass text messages.
The scam, yeah.
The scam.
And
So
you can go to Peach Pass to the official website and find out if you owe anything.
Yes.
And do not reach out or call these people. If you live in an area that charges for parking, you will receive an official letter in the mail if you are overdue parking.
speaking of scams, before we go to halftime,
yeah.
Sherry and I, Sherry, you've probably seen that they're very close to taking these school zone cameras down.
Yes.
Right?
What?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, have you not seen this?
No.
Yeah, it's all in the news.
Well,
Is
I
that
thought I sent it to you.
they're Washburn, a representative from Georgia, he's proposing that we take these down, and I think it's actually getting a lot of traction.
It is.
Where they're going to take these, hopefully, take these stupid school. Everybody hates them. Everybody hates them unless you work for the county and you know that it brings revenue. But anyway, I don't know if it's
I know-
technically a scam.
I know we
It
have
sure
a-
feels like one.
I know we have a valued listener that called in several times, just just really upset about him. So maybe he's been part of that and helping come to this conclusion.
Yeah,
The problem to me is the signs are not big enough for your eyes to notice
correct.
once you enter the school zone, and there's the darn camera right there taking a picture of you speeding.
Right.
And I just think it's such a racket. I don't think it's saved any lives. I don't think it's helped anybody. I think the camera people that make the systems are just making a pile of money off of this whole gig.
Absolutely.
Don't dispute that one bit.
You've been listening to Your Money, produced by Lifespan Wealth Management with your hosts, Sherry Goss, Randy Goss, and me, Jonathan Eisner. If you'd like to contribute to the show, you can email randy@rfmoney.com with a question or topic that you'd like us to cover in a future broadcast. Our number is 478-922-8100. We have offices in Macon and Warner Robins for your convenience.
And you can find out more about us by visiting our website, retirerelax.com. Lifespan Wealth Management has been serving the Middle Georgia area for over 30 years, helping people like you achieve their investment and retirement goals. And if you're in need of a financial advisor, please contact our office at 478-922-8100.
We also offer seminars to the community at no cost. So if you are in need of a guest speaker for your church or civic organization, give us a call and together we can decide what topics you would like us to present to your group.
Again, our contact number is 478-922-8100. Now back to the show.
All right. Big news from Harvard this week. I'm sure a lot of people have seen that they announced Monday that undergraduate tuition will be free. Tuition only will be free for students of families who make annual incomes of $200,000 or less, in a move to make the prestigious institution affordable to more students than ever before. The university will also make schooling completely free for students from families with annual incomes of $100,000 or less, covering tuition, food, housing, health insurance, travel costs, etc.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. The new expansion of financial aid will begin in the 2025-2026 academic year. Putting Harvard within financial reach for more individuals widens the array of backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives that all of our students encounter, fostering their intellectual and personal growth. This is according to Harvard University President Alan Garber. By bringing people of outstanding promise together to learn with and from one another, we truly realize the tremendous potential of the university.
Well, they should be able to afford it. The Harvard endowment was valued at $53.2 billion as of June of 24.
And a lot of people give when they pass.
That's right.
They have them as part of their will because they appreciate what they did for them so much. According to the release, the aid expansion will enable approximately 86% of U.S. families to qualify for Harvard College's financial aid, not that they could all get in. Students with an annual family income of $100,000 and below will also receive a $2,000 startup grant in their first year and a $2,000 launch grant in their junior year to help support the transition beyond Harvard. Meanwhile, students with family incomes of $200,000 or less will receive free tuition and additional financial aid for build expenses. Since the launch of the Harvard Financial Aid Initiative in 2004, the university has expanded its threshold to cover tuition, food, and housing costs 4 times. Currently, 55% of undergraduates receive financial aid, and their families paid an average of $15,000 for the 2023-24 year. That is cheaper than most places.
Schools, right?
That's crazy.
Right. To quote the William R. Fitzsimmons, Harvard's Dean of Admissions, to quote him, he said, "They know the most talented students come from different socioeconomic backgrounds and experiences, from every state and around the globe. And our financial aid is critical to ensuring that these students know Harvard College is a place where they can be a part of the vibrant learning community, strengthened by their presence and participation." Other schools have also expanded their financial aid programs to accommodate lower and middle-class families. In November, the University of Texas system announced it would expand its free tuition program for lower-income families to include all families making $100,000 or less a year. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology also announced last year it would eliminate tuition costs for undergraduate students whose families make less than $200,000.
This is an incredible trend. Jonathan, one less thing for you to worry about with your
Right.
4 kids.
Right.
Yeah, plus, they'll all be out of state. You
I
don't
just
have to
got
worry
to
about them
stop
all.
making money so that I can
Right.
qualify to, that's all it is.
One last thing, and I know it was mentioned up higher in this article, but I did a little deeper dive into this Harvard tuition topic, and I read that the tuition assistance will also cover health insurance. And I don't think, who else is doing that? I mean,
I don't know anybody that's doing that.
yeah, that's in addition to the tuition, housing, meals, and even some travel. So
Yeah, I thought that stood out.
I
yeah,
had some kind of health insurance program when I went to the University of Idaho. I don't know what it was, but I remember signing paperwork of something that if I got sick, there was a doctor there. Must be probably the university doctor,
probably yeah, just maybe for
that guy.
minor
Sick
sickness, but
visits
this
or something.
this
Yeah,
just yeah,
I don't know.
whatever.
Anyways, that's pretty awesome.
Yep.
All right, this should not surprise anybody. There's a good chance that your kid is using AI to cheat. Right. Shocker. A high school senior from New Jersey doesn't want the world to know that she cheated her way through English, math, and history last year.
But she put it out in the Wall Street Journal.
Right. Anonymously, Randy, anonymously. Yet her experience, which the 17-year-old told the Wall Street Journal with her parents' permission, shows how generative AI has rooted in America's education system, allowing a generation of students to outsource their schoolwork to software with access to the world's knowledge. Educators see benefits to using AI in the classroom, yet teachers and parents are left on their own to figure out how to stop students from using the technology to short-circuit the actual learning. Companies providing AI tools offer little help. The student told the Journal why she used AI for dozens of assignments last year. Basically, she felt the work was boring or difficult. She wanted a better grade. A few times she procrastinated and ran out of time to complete the assignments.
Yeah, welcome to life, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, she prioritized what she wanted to do, with what she needed to do. But I guess in the end, she ended up getting it all done, right? But the real question is, did she learn anything in the process?
Doesn't sound like it.
Doubt it.
So the student turned to OpenAI's ChatGPT and Google's Gemini to help spawn ideas and review concepts, which many teachers allow. More often, though, AI completed her work. Gemini solved math homework problems, she said, and aced a take-home test. ChatGPT did calculations for a science lab. I really hated science lab. I'll tell you what, I read that, and just brings back flashbacks.
Too bad you didn't have AI.
Right. It produced a tricky section of a history term paper, which she rewrote to avoid detection. Around 400 million people use ChatGPT every week, OpenAI said. Students are the most common users, according to the company, which offers a free version and advanced services costing as much as $200 a month. In a perfect world, OpenAI hopes students will get into a lifelong habit of consulting ChatGPT whenever they have a question, a role played by Google for almost 3 decades, not just plagiarizing to get a good grade.
Yeah, of the students who reported using AI, nearly 40% of those in middle and high schools said they employed it without the teacher's permission to complete the assignments, according to a survey last year by Impact Research. Among college students who use AI, the figure was nearly half.
I don't buy that.
Yeah, more like all.
70 or 80.
Yeah. Students operating on screens outside adult supervision are left to decide whether to use or resist the temptations to use AI tools that can clandestinely deliver top grades. And you can be sure that age restrictions set by AI companies can be easily circumnavigated. Like the unknowns accompanying the introduction of social media a generation ago, there have been limited research on AI's academic merits and pitfalls for students, including the propensity for cheating.
Many educators worry that easy access to AI chatbots tempts more students to avoid challenging academic work. You don't say. Rapid advances in AI technology have made it difficult to detect in student work. Even OpenAI CEO Sam Altman said last year in a blog post that our children will have virtual tutors who can provide personalized instruction in any subject, in any language, and at whatever pace they need. OpenAI's vice president of education has suggested that schools can combat cheating by welcoming AI into the classroom. They believe that educators who incorporate AI into their teaching and assignments can successfully shift it from a tool students use without disclosure to a fully integrated, guided part of their learning process. Organizations and companies have launched AI-powered tutors designed to help students learn without a teacher present. Some educators have picked up AI tools to help them write lesson plans, worksheets, or letters.
Yeah, Sandy Margrella, a high school English teacher in New Jersey, said that chatbots help improve her lessons and devise new classroom activities. It's like kind of having a colleague to talk to. The education department, various states, nonprofits, and companies, including OpenAI, have published broad guidance about how teachers can use AI responsibly, noting, for instance, that chatbox-generated information isn't always correct. For the most part, though, cheating is mentioned only briefly or not at all. Joshua Howells, a high school English teacher in Sonoma County, California, said AI cheating spread quickly among his students last year. He now requires them to write the first draft of any paper in class by hand, with computers and phones prohibited and out of reach. The change has produced an unexpected benefit, he said. Students take more time on their work and their writing is more authentic. The downside, he can't assign homework. He says, if I do, it just gets cheated on.
Dozens of companies advertise apps they claim can write essays and complete homework with AI software that can't be detected. U.com ran a Facebook ad in July that featured an image of a marketing student wearing a backpack, headphones, and braces. I wrote my essay in minutes, citations included, with U's Research Assistant. The search and research tool was valued by investors at nearly $1 billion. CEO Richard Socher and a spokeswoman for the company didn't respond to requests for comment. Around the start of the current academic year, Estonian company Aethor ran promotions on Facebook and Instagram for its writing assistant. The ads promised flawless essays in a click, showing 2 emojis of a graduation cap.
Teachers hate us is the advertising slogan for Catcus AI. Harrison Leonard, the company's CEO, said the phrase refers to teachers who resist change. College students already know how to write, Leonard said, so Catcus AI is helping students prepare for work by learning to use AI. He said he wasn't creating a cheating tool. I don't buy that. I don't buy any of this. I think it's
Right.
all cheating. I think it's all just taking a shortcut, and it bothers me. Patricia Webb, an English professor at Arizona State University, typically bars AI use in her classes. Yet on some writing assignments, she suspects 20 to 40% of her students use it anyway, based on the writing styles that she observes. But without definitive evidence, she said, she rarely confronts those students. She says, if you can't prove it, you can't make the charge. That means she often awards passing grades for work she is almost certain that they did not do, but it was generated by AI. Her attempted remedy is assigning writing based on personal experiences or interviews, which are more difficult to outsource to AI.
Yeah, and some teachers turn to third-party AI detection tools. Yet often the software identifies students' writing as genuine, and it isn't. In some instances, labels legitimate student work as AI generated. Carter Wright, a high school English teacher outside of Houston, Texas, said he has spent hours chasing AI plagiarism, using free trials and detector software, and checking edit histories in students' Google Docs. His students always seem one step ahead of him. He said, "It will be almost impossible for me to stop all the cheating unless we were to completely get rid of the technology."
What a disaster. Everything just needs to be done in the classroom, which really limits how much work you can assign a kid.
Yeah, but is it a disaster? You know, we grew up with encyclopedias, microfiche archives, magazines, and newspapers, and we would dig through those and compile excerpts and clips to craft a paper or whatever project we were assigned. Then along came the internet and Google, and that made that stuff obsolete. And our time to compile that same amount of data to craft the same paper or complete the same project was significantly reduced. I believe the real trick here is to test the understanding of the project when it is done. In the Stone Age, which is what it seems like today when we had to do the research by hand, we learned a lot in the process of digging around in the encyclopedias and newspapers and other sources. And if you just rely on AI to produce your paper and you just turn in the final project, what have you learned? Probably very little. However, like the young lady at the beginning of this conversation who rewrote the paper after AI produced it to make it sound more like her, I imagine she learned a significant amount just from rewriting the paper in that little exercise she did, at least as compared to the person who never read what AI produced. The other thing is that if teachers want to get ahead of their students, have the paper deadline a couple of weeks earlier. And then when the teacher is grading the paper, create questions that the student must answer in a narrative format in class as part of the total grade. AI is not going to go away. We just need to learn to use it in a beneficial way. In the real world, you might be able to get away with cheating on a paper once or twice on a given subject without understanding what it's really about. But in the long run, you better know your subject matter, or that crow will come home to roost, probably with you in the unemployment line.
Ouch.
So I find it so interesting. I was in a class in college, and it was a literature class, and everybody had to write a paper on a certain subject. So everybody goes to the library. Everybody uses the same books.
Yep.
Everybody's just copying out of these books and
Yep.
typing all this junk. And so I went to a different library across a different state. You go into Washington State for like, it's like 5 miles.
You were like very short distance from
It's
the
like
other
5
state.
miles. So I went to that college, university, whatever, University of Washington, I think. And I went to their library and I used their books, which were different than the books at my library. And so I used their books and basically copied everything out of it to write this paper. So we show up for class. We all turned in our papers. The next class we had, the teacher walked in enraged. He was so mad because he had gone to the University of Idaho, where I was going, and checked out all the books from the library. And he went through everybody's paper and could see that everybody just copied directly out of the books instead of thinking and writing on their own. And he gave all those people an F. And he looked at me with these cold eyes, and I'm the only person that he couldn't figure out where I got my information. Because this was before the internet. This is where you had to go get books and write out of a book.
Little
But
did
because-
he know you were from the future. You had AI.
Yeah.
It's because I went across state line and used a different library. I did the same thing everyone else did, but I don't know why I had that idea. But it
So
saved-
Sherry is officially on the record for cheating.
Right.
we had something even worse though. I was in a sorority, and so you get into the sorority and they make you study 3 hours a night. They take you to the library and they watch you study. You have to be in playing 2 sports. You have to do exercise. You have to chores. You have all these things you have to do. But there were these giant file cabinets in the basement, and everybody. This is back in the day when you would get your test back. Like you would take a test and they would return it to you with your grade and it marked what you got wrong. So everybody that had those put them in the file cabinet. So the kids that came into the classes the next year could just not go to the class and just show up on the day to take the test because they already knew it was going to be on the test and what all the answers were. I mean, that's almost worse than this. And that was 40 years ago? So I'm saying
Yes, Sherry, it was worse than this.
it was because they didn't even have to go to class. They didn't have to show up. They could just show up on the day of the test, mark all the answers correctly because they knew them, and walk out the door and pass the class. And that was 2 years worth of freshman, sophomore year of college.
Yeah. But, you know, AI is not going away, and kids are learning how to do things more efficiently. I think that's what they're learning. But they also need to learn the subject matter to go along with it. You know, a lot of times when these papers that we did in college, they really meant nothing. That I cannot remember one paper that I wrote in college that means anything to me today. You know,
Right.
it was the process of
Right.
creating.
Yes.
But in that class, though, you had to know your subject matter because you never knew when the teacher was going to throw something on your desk that you had to be able to pass. So if being able to effectively use AI to get your job done works for you, and you've learned this in school, so be it.
And you actually read the content.
Yeah, that's what I said a while ago. You know, you might get away with it once or twice in a work environment, but you know, you better still know your content. You better know your specialty at the end of the day.
Yeah. This brings up a good point, and it may just get to a point where everything, even if it's a report you're doing or, you know, some sort of project, you have to be tested on it at the end of it to really pass it.
You know, the teacher could take this, tell them to bring in your paper in a digital format. The teacher could load that back into an AI engine and say, AI, generate me 10 questions.
Absolutely.
And it wouldn't take long for that teacher to have 10 unique questions for every kid.
So use the cheating tool that the students are using against them.
That's right.
You're like, wait, that's not fair.
I think I'm going to create a software tool. Just go ahead and trademark that and sell it for $1 billion.
I like it.
All right. So Robot uses lasers to make chemical-free farming a reality. So I grew up on a wheat and pea farm in northern Idaho, and I watched my dad go around and around hundreds of acres, tilling, planting, fertilizing, and then harvesting. We had massive amounts of DDT that spread over all the crops in our garden. The garden was my job, so I'd go get the bucket of DDT, walk up to the garden, then just use my hands to spread the stuff all over the vegetables that we were growing. I'm not sure if I even washed up afterward, but that's why this article caught my eye, because you shouldn't do that. Imagine a future where farming is not only more efficient, but also cleaner and greener. That's exactly what Carbon Robotics is promising with its latest innovation, the Laser Weeder G2. This game-changing technology figures to revolutionize weed control by ditching chemicals altogether. It's a solution that's both good for the planet and great for farmers looking to reduce their environmental footprint. By harnessing the power of lasers, artificial intelligence, and advanced robotics, the G2 is equipped with a powerful 240-watt laser that can destroy weeds with pinpoint accuracy. The G2 also features high-resolution cameras and enhanced optics for precise weed identification, utilizing carbon AI that processes over 40 million labeled plants for accurate detection. Additionally, it includes target and predict cameras for weed identification. The G2 operates effectively day or night thanks to its LED lighting system, and its modular design supports widths from 6.6 to 60 feet. I can't get my head around that one,
Right.
making it adaptable to various farm sizes and needs. Underneath its sleek exterior, the Laser Weeder G2 boasts a GPS LTE antenna to precisely positioning for precise positioning, a chiller system for temperature control, self-contained weeding modules, satellite internet connectivity for real-time updates, and an electrical cabinet that houses advanced processing units. The Laser Weeder G2 doesn't just remove weeds; it obliterates them, effectively killing the weed from the inside out. This method is not only effective, but also prevents regrowth. The company claims an impressive 80% reduction in yearly weed control costs and a 99% kill rate on all types of weeds. It is a laser after all. And I wonder if they're going to start installing something like this in riding lawnmowers. Would that be incredible?
That would be fantastic. This is a wonderful product. And I can see this being outsourced as a service that one company or one farmer, who would buy the system and then contract the service to the other farmers.
Absolutely.
These large farms, many farmers already outsource combine operations for harvesting because combines are expensive and it's often more economical to contract the service versus purchasing and servicing these machines.
That's absolutely true. And with electronics and driverless combines and all this stuff, I mean, being able to rent from somebody instead of buying is a massive deal. Anyways, I just thought that was really fascinating.
Yeah, for sure. Do you pay for gas at the pump? Using Tap to Pay at the pump is the number one way to protect yourself from skimmers at the gas station. This is because the tap transaction will bypass traditional credit card skimmers because it doesn't involve swiping or inserting your card into a potentially compromised card reader. Instead, it uses encrypted short-range wireless communication between your card or device and the terminal. This makes it much harder for skimmers to intercept data. And even if the information was compromised, the contactless payment transaction is completed differently. It uses a tokenization process that generates random card numbers that are for one-use transactions. We talked a little bit about this last week when we were talking about getting rid of card numbers altogether.
Yep.
Yes.
The downside of using a debit card is a lack of consumer protections when compared to credit cards. So using a debit card at the pump for a swipe is one of those situations you need to avoid whenever possible. It's riskier than a credit card because it's tied directly to the bank account.
Yeah, and that's a good point. If a skimmer steals your debit card info, funds can be drained immediately, and recovery of those funds can be slower and less guaranteed compared to credit card fraud protection. Credit cards typically offer stronger safeguards like zero liability policies and don't give thieves instant access to your cash. It's worth noting, however, that you could use non-chip debit cards to pay for an at the pump transaction by adding the card to either Apple Pay or Google Pay and making it a tap transaction. If Tap to Pay isn't available at the pump, you'll want to visually inspect the card reader on your pump for potential tampering before you swipe your credit card. Key indicators that something could be amiss are loose parts on the reader or something that looks like it's placed on top of the actual device.
So have either of you ever seen anything like that at a gas pump?
I have not, but I've heard stories.
Yes.
Okay.
I've only seen it on Google, but they're prevalent.
That's just crazy. There's creative people that can make smart things and to do that with it. I mean, anyways. So landlords have a new hardball tactic, tanking your credit score. This is huge. You need to talk to your young children if they rent about this article. When David Murray moved out of his St. Louis apartment 2 months early, he thought he had settled up by giving notice. So when he received a bill for $4,500 for 2 months' rent plus penalties, he assumed there was a mistake. Then his credit score fell from a near-perfect 815 to a low of 630. The landlord had hired a debt collector to go after the alleged arrears. The collection agency didn't harass or sue him. It filed a claim with the credit bureaus. Landlords say targeting credit scores with the help of debt collectors has proven more efficient than endless phone calls or drawn-out legal battles. Rental debt is now one of the most common topics of complaints related to debt collection, according to Consumer Financial Protection Bureau data. In targeting credit scores, landlords recognize their centrality to American life. The three-digit numbers are important not just for helping lenders decide whether to extend loans, but also for helping landlords decide whether to rent apartments. The credit scoring industry has made a recent push to include on-time rental payments in credit scores, saying it will lift some scores, but credit reports are quick to reflect negative remarks too.
Consumer advocates say that shifting rent disputes from the courtroom to the credit reporting system gives landlords unchecked power. Rent cases historically account for more than half of small claims disputes. But unlike in court, where both sides present evidence and argue their case, credit reporting allows landlords and debt collectors to act as both judge and jury. Landlords say that one of the few ways to penalize people who owe them is to report unpaid rent to credit bureaus such as Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Since 2017, bureaus haven't put unpaid rent judgments from small claims courts on credit reports. This is according to Alexandra Alvarado, Director of Marketing and Education at the American Apartment Owners Association. This makes it harder for landlords to screen unreliable tenants. This is her. It seems like there really isn't a consequence for getting evicted, she said. It's quite frustrating for landlords. So some landlords have taken to hiring collection agencies to report unpaid rent, often at the cost of about 30% of the recovered funds, according to Alvarado.
For renters, the impact can be devastating. People can only review the data included in their credit reports once published. That means they can't correct errors until their scores have already fallen. The threat of credit damage often pressures tenants to pay debts they believe are unfair. Murray paid up once before. In 2019, his daughter faced a similar dispute. Her landlord claimed she failed to give proper notice before moving out at the end of her lease, charging her 2 months' rent after her departure. Initially, she planned to fight, but her credit score dropped so much that she struggled to secure another apartment. Eventually, Murray settled the debt on her behalf. When it happened again in 2022, he didn't want to give in. Murray said he had documents showing he met the lease terms. He disputed the report, but credit bureaus rejected his claim after 19 days. He had thought the credit bureaus would ask him for his evidence, but they didn't. A spokesman for Murray's apartment complex said he didn't follow proper procedures for early termination and owed it $4,500. Court documents show that debt collectors often take the landlords at their word, and they rarely review evidence from tenants who challenge the claims.
Yeah, so if you rent and you're thinking of moving, make sure that you follow all the rules. Get your original lease out and read it, but keep them in a safe place to start with. And when you are considering a move, get these documents and go through them section by section, especially on the lease termination part. And be sure that you understand what you are required to do and what the penalties are if you don't. And if you notify your landlord, I recommend that you use a certified method with a return receipt requested so that you can be sure that they are properly notified and maintain all of that documentation. At least then you're going to have some kind of a resource if they decide to come after you. And if you followed the lease, if you follow all their rules,
Right.
you're going to have a better leg to stand on. And Sherry, you said this right at the very beginning. If you have kids, especially they've gone off to college or whatever, make sure that they understand how
critical this is.
how critical this is, especially if they're going to graduate college and have a very bad mark on their credit score.
Yep. Very
Got
good.
it. So do we have time to start one, or we want to just?
We are under 2 minutes. So
Do you guys? We had opened the show with cherry blossom stuff. Are you guys attending any cherry blossom festivities?
I'm looking at it from out our window.
Yeah.
I thought you would want to go ride the rides.
No, that's the
No,
last
my
thing we're going to
gosh,
be on.
it's
I
horrible.
know. Sherry
It's
said.
horribly crowded. It's just the lines are long. I like wandering around when they do that day with all the people that bring out their crafty things
Yeah,
that they
that's-
make. I don't buy anything, but I just like seeing all these people out selling their candles and their whatever they're doing.
I've always wanted to go to the food trucks and just sample stuff, but the lines are always so long.
They are.
And because some of the food that they just smell fantastic.
The music this year looks good. I don't know if you guys like to go over there and just listen. We enjoy walking around while they're playing, and they play every night. They have a band up there.
We haven't done that before, but we have talked about that this time around. We might get out and go see something.
Those guys looked at the lineup. I don't remember any of them specifically, but there's some local talent that they're bringing, into there. So that should be good. And my kids do enjoy the rides. So we may
Oh,
go over
wow.
there. We may go over there at some
Yeah,
point. If
Good
it's,
luck with that.
Yeah. I'll just drop them off
Maybe
and
hire a nanny.
Carry one of those can of wet wipes or something with
Yeah.
you, because
for sure.
from what I saw, they were pretty grody looking.
They are. I think that's
Well, we're being a
rule of
great
thumb.
ambassador, aren't we?
I'm just not a crowd person at
Yeah,
all.
I think that's really for us.
I'm really not a crowd person. I mean, airport's about as far as I can go. I can't go to a concert. I can't stand being close to a bunch of people. So, anywho, we're wrapping it up now.
Yeah, well,
Have a great week, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Your Money, produced by Lifespan Wealth Management. As financial advisors, the main thing we do is provide retirement planning advice and manage our clients' investment accounts. If you're looking for an investment advisor, call our office at 478-922-8100 to set up your complimentary consultation. You can learn more about our services by visiting our website at retirerelax.com.
and if you'd like to contribute to the show, you can email me, randy@rfmoney.com, with a question or a topic that you would like for us to cover in a future broadcast. And we look forward to connecting with you next week. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Osaic Wealth Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Osaic Wealth is separately owned, and other entities and or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Osaic Wealth.